Welcome to Fresh Start Podcast. I'm Dave Henning, and my guest today is Bob Krueger. Bob is the founder of Westech Business Solutions. Welcome, Bob.
Hi, Dave. Thanks very much. Glad to be here.
So, Bob, what exactly does Westech Business Solutions actually do?
The question of the hour, what do you really do? So we're business coaches, also consultants, and we do a lot of training. So here's the bottom line. The bottom line is really simple, Dave. We help people be more successful in their businesses. When they're more successful and we do our jobs and frankly, they do their job and work hard, it ends up in almost always with financial success. So success for the company, for the owners, but also for the employees too, right? And it's a total win-win. So our job is to get results for businesses. It's not more complicated than that.
What are you seeing as small business owner responses to this COVID situation right now?
It's really interesting, Dave. I'm seeing, so from my customers, and I have a lot of business colleagues and our people, in Westech itself, right? There's myself and 5 other people. So in the business community, it's really interesting. Real quickly, the Viktor Frankl, right? The man that wrote Man's Search for Meaning, who survived the Nazi concentration camps. One of the things that he noted under the extreme pressure, in this case, of a concentration camp, was that he noted that people responses tended to be extreme, and that in some cases, he noted in his words, where people tended to be angelic, meaning helping other people, putting the other people before themselves. And then conversely, 180 degrees away, he noted that some people just became, in his word, devilish, and no problem killing people, have to stay alive at any stake. So he noted this extreme response. So to answer your question, I notice very extreme responses from people. Some of them are the opposite of what I would expect. A friend of a friend who runs a business, very well organized guy, his response, he kind of fell apart organizationally. And so, for instance, things that I was sure he would apply for the PPP loans, very organized. What he did is he pulled in, pushed everybody away, his own people, and just said, "Hey, I'm doing this. This is my own thing." And as a result, he missed several things. And conversely, and one of my customers really does a good job at running his business, and we help him organizing his business and himself. He took the exact opposite. He just buckled down and got super focused and said, "What do we need to do to get through this tough stuff?" So it's really interesting. You see extreme responses, and you see responses that are 180 degrees out of sync.
So that's a great example that you just gave of a successful COVID small business pivot, if you will. So how do small business owners transition their business right now to a post-COVID marketplace?
One of the things is questions that people and small business owners need to ask themselves is, what do I need to do not only to get through this, but more importantly, to succeed in the post-COVID business market? And that's really what we're talking today. It's BAC, it's business after COVID. And so you look at, the term pivoting, which is taking my business and pivoting it, okay? And in one example, it's in Northern California here. It's Humble Sea Brewing Company, a brewing company. And I know the intimate details of it. My son, Frank Scott Krueger, is one of the 3 owners of it. So Frank Scott, Taylor West, Nick Pavlina. And so their business was whatever, maybe 90%, come in, order your beer, sit down, have a beer. And then they had a sideline, maybe 10%. And I don't know what the exact percentages are, but I just know it was smaller. So forgive me if I don't know the exact numbers. And so what happens when the front room is shut down, they have to furlough people. Well, they sat down and they looked at it, they analyzed the situation and said, what can we do with our canning operation? And they came up with a plan, and they actually bought their own canning equipment and were actually able to get it installed. And I don't know how that happened, because usually these things take a long time. And the net result is they were able to pull back people that were furloughed to help in the canning operation. Net result, when the smoke clears right now, while we're still sheltered in place and that, the tasting room is still closed, every drop of beer they make is going into canning.
Wow.
And yeah, really a great story. So I'm proud of those guys for getting it done, and I'm proud of them for not being passive. And that's one of the points, if there's any point I could make to people today, is we need to be proactive. So real quickly, here's what I suggest. I suggest you choose. And there's an infinite variety of choices, but I want to present to you 3 different business choices that you may choose in terms of how do I proceed in the post-COVID business place, okay? So let's look at the first one, Dave. So we call this pushback, and back is business after COVID, okay? So pushback is the proactive model. It's characterized by committing investment in terms of people and money, focusing on what do we need to do, what do we need to learn so that we can be successful in this post-COVID market. Now, some people say this is risky because you're making investment. I say the opposite. I say it's way more risky to not invest and just wait for the smoke to clear. Okay, but we'll talk about that in a second. So first option, proactive, pushback. Second option, we call it fallback. Partially proactive. This is I think I'll dip my toe in the water to see if it's warm, but I'm not sure I want to swim option. So exhibited by some commitment, some investment. Well, let's try this and see how it works. But in general, let's not do too much. And the thing is, I say it's characteristic of more talk and less action. So let me try to convince you, Dave, that, I've got this great plan and I'm going to do this, that, and the other thing. And it really sounds good on paper, but I'm not really doing that much. Okay. So risk-wise, you can say, well, this has some risk in it. I say it has more risk than the initial proactive one. So this is fallback and partially proactive model. Okay. Let's take a look at the third. The third we call layback. Totally reactive. No commitment, no investment. I'm just waiting. Now, all of us have talked to the layback guys, and I'm not putting them down, right? I mean, there's a certain amount of comfort to say, well, Bob, what are you going to do with your business? I'm just going to wait till the smoke clears, and then I'm going to figure out what to do. So, there's a certain amount of, well, that's not a dumb thing to do. There's a problem, though. Business is never instantaneous, and it's always some delay to it. Well, what do I mean by that? Well, the business, now forget about COVID for a second, but the business, the customers, the orders I have right now are a function of what I did 3 months ago or 6 months ago, right? There's always a lag, right? Well, for those of us that are going to just say, I'll just stick my head up after the smoke clears, well, you might be okay for the moment, but what's going to happen in 3 months and what's going to happen in 6 months? So from a cash flow perspective, from keeping things rolling perspective. So I would argue, and there's certainly way more options than these 3, but these are the 3 primary. I would argue that the layback reactive mode of what do I do with my business, I would argue this is the highest risk because you're totally passive. Does that make sense at all?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. There's a story of the Coca-Cola company who dominated the industry, and they had a new marketing guy that says, well, we're number 1, so we're going to cut back on our advertising budget. And when they did that, it actually took them 5 years to recover back to the levels that they had, just because somebody thought, well, we're going to save a few bucks. We're going to cruise here at this time. Really, right along the line of what you said about the layback idea, and it's a really bad time to spend your entire life binge watching on Netflix. Just saying.
That's not a good business model. Binging on Netflix.
Exactly.
Don't do that. That's free advice. So here's what I say. Choose like your business depends on it. Now, I'm not trying to be over dramatic here, right? The world is not, falling down, but I urge people to really consider, making a choice. Now, here's the thing, and everyone knows this. I'm not telling anybody what they don't already know, but there will be most of us that don't make a choice, well, then that's the choice to do layback. Then that's the choice to do nothing. It's okay, but the question you have to answer to yourself is not rhetorical, is can I live with the results of doing nothing? Now, there are some businesses that can. I would argue that most businesses can't. So all I'm saying is that you need to choose, you need to take this seriously. And even if you're in great shape now, which is great, that means you've done all kinds of good things prior to this to build a solid foundation. Even if you're in great shape right now, that does not mean that you might not have a problem in 3 months, 6 months. Therefore, you must at least assess. So Greg Holson does two things for me. And Greg does my graphics, and he's so creative. But the second thing is he helps me with content. And he's always coming up with different ways to characterize things. And so the question is, okay, fine. What are the components in order to be proactive to transition my business to the business after COVID market? Well, it's assessment. Assess. What do we have now? What's the effects on my cash flow? Certainly very important. My people, my customers, what's the effect on potential new business and business that I had before? So a strong assessment, and based on that, generate a plan. What is the plan? What do we need to do? What do we need to focus on, right? And then the last thing, we call it a system. Well, the system is the actual implementation. Without the system, nothing happens. Now, for those of us, and I tend to be that guy, I tend to go from business assessment to I'll just do a 2-minute plan to I'll just get going because we got to get things done. We got to be careful here because we really do have to assess it. Now, does that mean you have 6 months to assess? Nope. And when you assess, does it mean you have 6 months to do your plan? Nope. But it means if you do both those steps well, the third step will be at least clearer in terms of what needs to be done. Okay, so those 3 steps, I would argue, is what we need to do.
Great. I think you have iterated this on this slide, and let's see what the bottom line is. Tell us a little bit more about what's that going to look like, please.
Yeah, in fact, I mentioned Greg, my designer. He's going to kill me because I'm mixing together a bunch of his graphics. I stole this from one of our other presentations. One of the things that comes up now is that we're seeing teams, and a lot of business owners and a lot of team leaders are a little worried because we've had 2 months of lack of cohesiveness with teams. In many cases, teams shut down for a while. Well, in most cases, still a physical distance, but also could be distance in terms of collaboration. So a lot of business owners have been saying, hey, I'm a little worried about this. And I think rightfully so. So one thing to consider, one input to everybody that's a small business owner, everybody that's a team leader, or everybody that's on a team as well, is we need to look at that team and examine the functionality of it, right? And I put this down here. It's never what it looks like. It's not what the team sounds like. And it's not what they meet like. How do we meet together? It's whether we're functional. Can you go on to the next one? And so, and we've cut out a bunch of stuff here. And what we do is we use the Lencioni 5 dysfunctions of a team model. And in fact, this is one of our few external content we use. Probably 95% of our content, Westech content, is generated, by us. And so we use that model. And in this case, forget about Westech. These are the 3 steps that I think that everybody needs to do. Do them yourself. Do them with somebody else. If you want to talk to us about it, great. But strengthen your team. So first, get together. What are the owners? And this, in fact, would be the process that we would go through, but genericize a little bit. What are the owners' objectives? Okay. Talk to the team. Give them the overall concept. These are the training we're going to do. But the second part is an assessment. And we've got a killer assessment that analyzes the 5 levels of functionality or dysfunctionality. And then afterwards, you meet with the teams. You go back and say, here's the feedback, guys. We're strong here, and Here's where we're not strong. And then you have to sit around maybe 1 or 2 meetings and really chew on it and make sure those teams are, they're expressing what they need to say. They agree, they don't agree. But then you go into the most important part. It's always about implementation, and that's team training. That's part 3. So what are the key areas we need to get better on? Let's start doing it and do it for 3 months minimum. Really should be more than that, but say 3 months, and then do another assessment. So all that's on the page, I mean, that can go from, a year and a half to minimum of 3 months or so, depending on what type of depth you want to do. But I suggest you really be very careful about the assumption that most of us are going to incorrectly make. And that incorrect assumption is that, well, we were good before this happened. My team was good. And in fact, that may be true. So I'm good now. No, you need to check it out. You need to talk to them. You need to assess it. And again, forget about business for us, but I advise you, find somebody on the outside, even if it's a trusted business associate, that will help you assess how your team's really doing from their perspective, not just yours. And then most teams are going to need some help and support right now. So now's the time to do it. Okay, so be careful about assumptions. Don't assume everything's going great. Am I saying spend $12,000 a day on something that is not true? Absolutely not. But check the assessment, check the assumptions.
But what I hear you saying is this is something that proactive business owners can do right now, starting now, and implement through your BAC Business After COVID program, resetting your small business in an effective manner.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the larger picture here for everybody that's listening is do this. You don't need to do it with Westech. We'd love to talk to you. We're already started doing that with several customers, and we're, really wanting to support more. But the point that I really want to make is do it. Figure out what needs to be done, those 3 steps we talked about for business after COVID. Take it seriously. Don't freak out. That's not going to help us, but take it seriously and see what you can come up with. Stay out of the analysis paralysis loop, whatever you do. So this is our program. We call it BAC, BAC, Business After COVID. And what is it? It's really about resetting the business. Well, for a small business, that's easy to say. That's tougher to do. So that's our 3 parts there. You can order a business assessment. That turns into a business plan. And then you can order the whole business system for what that looks like and training-wise. I would say on the Westech side, what's really important to us is sitting with customers, prospective customers, and understanding what they want and what they need, rather than we just give them a fixed package. Here you go, here's your package. So everything we do, is always tailored to the small business owners or team leaders' specific requirements, right? There's no canned stuff that we do here. I think that's important because, in talking to people, we all have, know people that have done work with coaches, and when they've had good coaches, you hear about it all day long, but we also have heard about work with coaches where, it was kind of a canned program and really didn't help me that much. For us, we want to support people in terms of what they need support on, not what we think that is not in alignment with what they do. Okay, so feel free to contact me in particular. There's our info up there. You can email me, give me a call. And, I love, and I'm kind of the point man here, I love talking to people about their businesses and hearing what's important to them. So even if you have some ideas or questions, fine. I'll be glad to meet with you on Zoom. Pretty soon it'll be face-to-face again. But see if there's something we can help you on. And you know what? Sometimes we can't. Sometimes either it doesn't make sense, person doesn't want to make a commitment to do it, that's fine. Or other times, we're not the best guy to do it. Then we're going to say so. We run the business with integrity. We're not trying to talk people into doing things they don't need. So in order for that to happen, if you're interested, just contact us and we'll be glad to talk with you and more listen and less talking than I've done today, but asking questions and trying to figure out what you need.
It's been great talking with you, and we've been talking about the importance of proactively transitioning your small business to the post-COVID marketplace, especially now that we are in phase 2 of this situation of businesses beginning to open back up, people getting out a little bit more right now, safe distancing, of course, being safe everywhere. But I sure do appreciate your time today, Bob. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Dave. Really appreciate it. Good talking to you, and I wish everyone well.